Hey there guys, and welcome back to Unjaded Jade. So today is a video inspired by you guys because this entire video is led by questions that you have asked me over on my Instagram. Today I'm going to be talking about my course and my degree, the struggles, the interesting parts. For anyone who is a bit newer, I go to an interesting university called Minerva. Although it's based in San Francisco and kind of based loosely on the US system, we do this interesting global rotation model where we travel to different global cities across the years. We are taught through an online platform built by the university, so it's kind of optimized as a classroom, and it's different. I really don't think it's inherently better than traditional universities. I think it is just different. But yeah, if you're interested, let me talk to you. So a bit of context on me. Throughout my life, I have always loved learning. I've always been that academic Hermione kid who wants to learn every single subject in school. Even music, which I suck at. I didn't play an instrument, but I loved it. I always just wanted to learn more. I would pour the same energy and love into drama class as I would into maths, as I would into chemistry and English literature and French and geography and history and all of it. Every point of my academic career where I've had to make a choice to cut things down, I struggle so much because I think I'm just a generalist, but the world doesn't really function that way and does require you to choose and specialize, and obviously there's pros to that. But yes, one of the reasons that I love my university and why it fits me is because it's a liberal arts model. As I say, I think there are so many pros to specializing, but the idea is that you have a major and a minor and also take some electives in different courses, which is cool because then you can see crossovers between the different courses. First year was foundation year, so I studied 4 main courses in different disciplines. But this year I have only done business and cognitive neuroscience, and I love it. This video is kindly sponsored by Claro, which is an app in the startup stage, which is something that I appreciate 1,000 times more now that I do a finance course as one of my modules in uni. Like, genuinely, adult talk. What do you think of when you think of personal finance or saving and investing? Because I shudder. Most of my life, I've had no idea. You don't really get taught this stuff. I know I want to invest and be clever with my money, but no one really teaches you this stuff. No one teaches you the how. What's interesting about the finance space is that the few people who do know a lot are generally those with parents in finance or in business, which means it becomes this reinforcing feedback loop where the wealthy teach the wealthy how to be wealthy and manage their money well. I love the mission of Claro because it's a digital finance coach and community all about empowering people to make better financial decisions. They give you options of financial products that suit your goals, your needs. They guide you through personal finance stuff like saving for a house. And the coolest part about that app is that you get a human coach, like an actual human helping you, guiding you through the world of finance. So it's a bit like a football coach who can't do it for you, but can be there as an expert to support you. One of the new areas I'm interested in is responsible investing, how where you put your money has a sustainable and environmental impact. For example, if oil was looking like a really great investment, I still wouldn't invest because I don't want to support it. Claro is also a UK startup with like a small team of like 20 people. And as I'm going to get into in this video, that is super cool to me because so much of my semester has been focused on the idea of startups. And in Germany, I've interacted with a startup university, the German Startup Association. So Claro haven't actually launched yet, but if you're interested in the value of personal finance support, you can basically sign up to be on the waiting list in my description and you'll get notified when they launched. As someone who spent childhood wanting to be an author and just to write books and read and do English literature, transitioning to my teenagehood where I desperately wanted to be a vet, then wanting to do biological sciences, specifically more ecosystem plant focused. I'm now here doing more psychology, cognitive neuroscience. I love the neuroscience because it's just enough biology but then crossed with this broader social science psychology. And I love people and I find it fascinating. And then crossed interestingly with this business, which at my uni is very practical. We do a lot of case studies, we work with organizations in each city that we're in. Oh, okay, this is a good question. What is the most fascinating essay you've written? Did my lights just fall? Stay. Okay, yes, the most fascinating essay I've written. Oh, okay, so I had a group assignment which was based on the pandemic, but coming from a cognitive neuroscience approach about culture, things like conformity in mask wearing, how culture is shaped, cumulative culture. It brought in our module about evolutionary psychology and the development of the brain and the social brain hypothesis. And because we had an interesting group of very international people, we had to choose 2 locations dig deep into existing social science research about the two places and the pandemic, and try and explain through a neuroscience light why the reaction to the pandemic was so different. Very interesting and very far transfer of the knowledge. I don't know, you're learning about like the neuroscience of language acquisition or something like that. And it's like, oh, this is a very different topic for an essay. Like, how am I gonna apply what I've learned? And I think that's one of the fun and really hard things about Minerva assignments is that they're never just what you've learned in class. What you learn is like the more academic stuff, and then the assignments are like very applied. So it's a mixture of brand new research and then trying to bring in as much of what you have learned as possible. Best question ever. How do you deal with feeling dumb compared to your classmates? The number of times that I question how I got in here is daily. Imposter syndrome is so overlooked in how it affects the smallest things. Being like, you know, when a professor asks you a question and just having this anxiety, this overthinking, your heart be like bam, 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 just because you're so scared about how stupid you're gonna sound answering this question, like being physically scared that you're gonna be cold called just because you think you'll sound stupid compared to other people. I fully relate to that, and it's bloody tough. It's crazy because, okay, fine, whatever, we got grades in the past, sure, I like learning, sure, I know I'm good, I know I'm okay, like I appreciate myself. It doesn't matter, like I can do these self-affirmations and be like, you know, Jade, you're worthy of being here, you are enough, all these things. But academic insecurity is a real thing. I think the way my course runs is good for that because we don't get ranked in the year group, like the grades aren't compared across students, so it never feels competitive. People are very supportive and willing to help you, but people are also geniuses in the best, most inspiring way. And when you're just not feeling it that day or you really don't understand something, it can be hard. For me, this is why things like meditation really matter to me, because they set my brain up for not spiraling into imposter syndrome. Are there any coursework aspects? So interestingly, I don't have exams, which I thought I was gonna love. But it turns out, instead of having one period of stress where I'm cramming for exams, instead I'm stressed constantly. And it's just spread out across every single class and every assignment, and every single thing we do is graded in some way, and it all compounds towards this cumulative grade. So yeah, I always thought I'd love an all coursework based degree, but now I think it just doesn't let you breathe. Imagine you're coming into a classroom where as soon as you enter, you get given a test, a poll for 5 minutes about one of the readings, so you can't not do the reading. And then throughout the class, every time you speak, it's recorded and could be graded. And then just before you leave the class, you have to take a test question about the content in the class. And so for every single class, either the poll you've written at the start, one of the videos, or the end poll will be added to your final grade with a lower weighting, but still will be added. And then we have on average one assignment or essay a week, each of varying weightings. So if you're having a bad day, it's just kind of hard. If you miss a class, you have 1 week to do a makeup work essay about the class. It's normally around 500 words answering some set questions about the class. You have to watch the 1.5 hour recording, and you have to answer that first and last test question. And if you don't submit it within a week, you get a late. If you miss more than 3 classes, or take more than 4 lates, each late being 24 hours, then you get kicked out. You get put in academic probation. So it's just a lot. If you're not feeling good, you just have to go to class because you just don't want to do the makeup work. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. Oh, the interesting aspect of coursework, I guess, is that we also do civic projects. So in each city, based off of our career interests, we get partnered with an organisation. Generally it has to be connected to our studies in some way. If you're doing natural sciences, you can get lab work. If you're doing computer science, you can be a software engineer for like an NGO. In first year, I worked for a non-profit fighting sexual harassment in the workplace in San Francisco because I was really interested in the non-profit sector, and that is an issue, huge issue, especially in San Francisco and the tech culture, which is still male dominated. And it's really insightful being able to do that because you get to know the professional environment of the city, or you get a taste of it, and then you generally also write a final paper based off of that civic partner experience, which also gets graded and added to your grade. So it's this integration of trying to be academic and trying to be somewhat practical, which I think is also cool for expanding our professional networks and making us more likely to get a job, especially when we go to this weird uni that most people have never heard of, you know? Of course we're all aware of it. Of course we all feel like it's somewhat of a risk going to a uni without like the reputation of an Oxford or a Harvard. But obviously the uni knows that and knows that we have to prove ourselves. So we just get so much professional experience that we can to try and help us build cool CVs and LinkedIns and stuff like that to help us get internships and jobs. Is it hard studying such different subjects each semester? A little bit, but I love it. Honestly, I think it's kind of a cool shift. So like I have my marketing class, my finance class, and my neuroscience class this semester, and they require very different things of me, which is, I love it. I think it's fun. You get to pivot your brain and be like, okay, cool, we're analyzing scientific research papers now. Or like, okay, cool, I'm on an Excel spreadsheet using all these formulas. Maybe I'm just biased by the fact I just like learning. I would say the hardest part of this degree is that because they're trying to achieve the liberal arts model, but also to have not only the breadth of subjects, but attempt to go deep in all of them. Whereas like in a normal degree, you have your one subject and you go deep and then have breadth within that one subject. The pace that we go through modules is insane. Is, in my opinion, often too ambitious. There's no way you can cover all of emotion theory and cognitive neuroscience in 2 weeks of classes and read, you know, force someone to read like 30 academic papers, watch all these videos, come to class, like have these really deep discussions and do all these assignments and everything. It's just so ambitious that you physically can't go in your own time to the depth in every single thing that you'd like to, which means if you're really interested in something and want to discuss it at length, you have to go to office hours or make time for it. And I think that will change as the degree goes on and as we specialize even more, because eventually there'll be like 4 of us in a tutorial, and then you can sort of carve your interest more. But right now it's like scratching the surface of so many things without all the depth, just because it's not as feasible. How do you keep up with schoolwork? I'm genuinely curious to know how you handle it so good. I'm very honoured that you think I handle it so good. I think I would argue differently. Honestly, first year, I ran myself into the ground. I didn't post as much on here because I was just a wreck. I stayed up stupidly late. I was behind on things. I was working out how to do social life and adulting and exploring and the internship thing, but also the academic work. And I know it sounds basic, but I think the more you can maintain the foundations of your living, the better everything is. So as long as I exercise, I eat well, I do my laundry, I keep my relationships in my life good as like a base, and I manage that efficiently, then I am just more of a peak human who is then inspired to learn and take on things. But as soon as I let the foundations crumble, then the academics crumble. And you know me, it's the yoga, it's the meditation, it's Notion being my lifesaver, it's to-do lists, it's my Google Calendar, it's doing a weekly plan on a Sunday, looking ahead to the whole week, setting high-level goals for the week, realizing when I have deadlines and planning for them. With group projects, it's making a group chat early on, doing a call, delegating, and then following up and just trying, and then collapsing when it goes wrong, and celebrating when you meet your deadlines, and just chugging along trying to find the good moments of every day, because the academics can be a lot. Oh, a good question. Do you have recorded lectures or just Zoom conversations based on reading, personal studies you've done? We are not allowed to just watch the recorded lectures. Sometimes that's all you want. That's all you want, is to just not go and just watch a recording. Instead, it's like a tutorial where there's people on stage and it's literally like, Jade, what do you think about this point? Jade, can you justify what this person just said? Oh, Jade, the author mentioned insert difficult concept here. Can you just explain it to the class just so we make sure everyone like is on the same page? It's like being guided to teach yourself and to teach other people, which is cool, but really stressful. Do you have to write a thesis dissertation at Minerva? Yes, it's called a capstone and it's in our final year. Were you able to use your filmmaking skills for any of your course's projects? Not this year, but last year I made a video for my final project in the Arts and Humanities cornerstone class. It was really fun, it was really chill. It was about using like persuasion theory. What's something you learned in your course that you want to teach everyone? I think one of the ways that my perspective on the world has changed since my course is my perspective on business. If you're familiar with my content, you'd know I feel very disenfranchised with the way that most corporations in the world run nowadays. The crazy consumerism, the awful capitalism that just destroys people at the bottom, the general lack of social corporate responsibility, things like the fast fashion industry. I'm just not a fan. Also, who likes adverts and stuff? Like, no, like there's so many ways. Like, I just feel like business in my head for so long has been only about exploitation, and I still definitely see it through that light. But I think the course I have taken also makes me see how powerful business can be for other things. Because at the end of the day, businesses and startups are about solving a problem. And instantly you think, yeah, but okay, they're solving a problem to make money. That's not good. Like that's unethical. Maybe if I separate it for you, you can see how I'm starting to see it. Here you have a non-profit. The non-profit is amazing. They are also trying to solve a particular issue. However, the non-profit is so reliant on external funding that they're limited in the projects they complete, or perhaps they have an incredible idea that will solve things for someone, but it's localized only to that one project because they can't scale it further because they don't have the funding. But imagine if the solution funded itself so that you could then scale it to even more people. And unlike the non-profits project, which isn't as feedback based, in a business where people will only use it if it genuinely is solving the problem that they need solved, then the solution naturally iterates itself as it's being changed by the users who need it. Profit generation that goes back into scaling something bigger is the most sustainable way to make an idea change things in a huge way. And when I think about systems of change, at the top you kind of have politics, which is important but really slow and often kind of like this game. And I think below it you have corporational change, where businesses have just as much power, if not more power than politics sometimes, to change things in the world. They have so much ownership of money, they affect the way that we live. And kind of just underneath it, but kind of with an overlap on business, is social media. And I think social media acts at a cultural level to shift culture, and encouraging people to shift culture can also have an effect on the corporational and the political level. But just think, if a company like Gillette could convince like all the women in the Western world that their legs needed to be shaved and their armpits needed to be shaved in order to sell razors, could literally convince you of that insecurity through marketing. Think how powerful marketing can be when it's used for good. And it's hard to imagine just because we still view business as a bad thing. And while I still think there are issues, I'm really interested in green tech, sustainable business, social corporate responsibility, and the way that it can solve problems. Okay, just ranted. Also, since I was about 12, I just read all those entrepreneurship books. I was always addicted to reading Medium articles of like 10 things I learnt in my small business this year, or reading like Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, all of these things. Yeah, I don't know what I want to do with that, but I'm interested in exploring business and startups in the future. How do you remember all the stuff you read and learn? Spaced repetition, Anki flashcards, Notion, using the toggle feature so I can test myself, making a schedule around revisiting notes. Also this testing framework of each Minerva class where you have to answer things based on the readings is helpful to keep you on top of reviewing. Also, I had a lot of question about alumni and like, do people get jobs after Minerva? An excellent question that I also want to ask a lot. A lot of people have also asked if I can go to a master's at another university after Minerva. Like, will my degree be respected? It is a real degree, yay. I know someone who just graduated who is now a full-time psychology fellow at Harvard, and they're doing research training at the Laboratory in Implicit Social Cognition at Harvard with Dr. Mazarin Banerjee. I hope I said that right. I know someone else now doing a master's at Oxford. I have a friend that just after graduation is now assistant producer at National Geographic. Someone's a product manager at Twitter in San Francisco. Loads of people have started their own things. And so if it wasn't for the success of the alumni that I know, I would be scared. But I think it's slowly proving to me that yay, it's a real degree. It better be for the work I'm doing. Oh, so I have 2 weeks left of uni, 2.5 weeks. And I have 6 essays due in the next few weeks, because it's final season and we don't have final exams, we just have final essays. But I'm really excited because one of them is a location-based assignment for my marketing class. We have to choose an organization in the city we're located in, set up an informational interview with either someone who works there or a manager or CEO if you can, like as high up as you can get. Basically ask them loads of questions about customer centricity and their marketing strategy. And I have very closely befriended someone at a startup university here who has a startup about carbon offsetting. Even though he's my age, they were in the top 10% of Y Combinator, which is a really cool accelerator for startups. I love what they do. And so for this assignment, I get to just interview them, analyze their challenges, attempt to use my knowledge from this semester to implement strategies to help them. But more than anything, to write a cool essay about how what they're doing is meaningful and their marketing strategy. I'm really excited about that. Okay, so it's 4 p.m, but it's kind of dark, so I think I'm gonna end. But oh my god, my degree is far from perfect. There's so many things that need changing. I'm like the 5th generation at this university, which is nothing. There are so many challenges that come with being a startup university. I do not think it's inherently better at all than a traditional university model. There are so many things which would be so much easier at traditional university that I miss and I'm jealous of you of if you go to one. Do I honestly think it's conducive to have the number of assignments that we have and the lack of lenience with number of classes we can miss, etc. Like there's a lot of challenges. The expectations are unrealistic. Some of the modules we've done, I'm like, you could improve this. Overall, I am very grateful to be here. I do genuinely enjoy what I study and I do see it as really, firstly, changing my world perspective a lot, and because it's so practical, helping me carve what I want to do in the future. But more than anything, it's just interesting. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a cozy, higgy night in. I'm sending you much love from afar. Thanks for being on my corner of the internet. Also, casual magic of the day. Look how wholesome are fairy lights. The Christmas energy is here. Thank you, Clara, for sponsoring this video. Bye. Oh, and fun fact, claro. Claro means of course in Portuguese. So my Brazilian roommates, I say claro all the time. So that app is basically called Of Course.